Hi there. Welcome back to CFTA 2021, day two. Again, I'm Chris Aiken from Langen, and I am very excited to welcome everyone back. I really hope everyone enjoyed yesterday. I did. I got a lot out of it. There was definitely some great conversations. Um, I think the big focus yesterday was kind of looking at innovation. Was a lot of talk about drones and 3D and just some really great presentations. So I appreciate everyone who presented yesterday. We have a great lineup today as well. Today's kind of, I think, thinking about looking forward a little bit more on that path moving forward with our campuses. There's a lot of talk today about space planning, especially with COVID and how we deal with that. And then another great presentation about dashboards and kind of measuring and sharing metrics with your staff and stakeholders. Also later today is the all-member meeting. That's where we're going to be talking a lot about the organization, kind of the status of where CFTA is, a lot of association business, little farewell to some outgoing directors that are stepping away, and then welcoming some of the new board members that are coming on board with the recent election. Finally, the all-member meeting will be doing the big reveal for where the 2022 conference will be. Knock on wood, as of right now, it's set to be live. So let's hope that follows through. And then later this afternoon, there will be a lot of unconferences going on. That is where kind of some open discussions talking about very specific topics. So hopefully you can enjoy that, join and really engage with some of those discussions. Again, that's space planning, that's GIS, there's about a half a dozen of those. So find your favorite one, join in on those and join in the discussion. Also, there's been a lot of networking and connections going on. We really encourage you guys to keep doing that. There are awards that are going out for that. I don't know if you've seen that in the notification that's come up in the little drop down on your I think a bell icon on the website. It can get lost, especially if you are making a lot of connections. But there was a little announcement about some Amazon gift card awards for those who are making a lot of connections and networking. Off of that, please take time to try and schedule a time or an appointment with the sponsors and exhibitors. They are the people who really are supporting this organization financially, pushing technology, obviously trying to get word out there. Take a look at their content. There's a lot of great sponsors involved in this, and we really encourage everybody to go and look at all that. Again, make some connections as you can. And then, again, scheduling time with that. There is time still available this afternoon after the meeting, after the conference ends, to be able to schedule time with that. And I believe this platform will remain open for the next couple weeks. And a couple things that'll come from that'll allow you to schedule additional sessions in the next week or two with some of the sponsors and exhibitors. But then also it'll allow you to go back and look at some of these sessions. They are going to be published live, I believe, on YouTube, or published on YouTube afterwards. But in the next couple of weeks, they are available on demand in this platform. So you can always come back here, take a look at anything you missed, or dive deeper into some of these. So we really encourage you to do that. We are going to continue to have Matt Orley with us today, the illustrator. He did some pretty cool things yesterday, really encompassing all of the sessions. We're going to have him back on throughout the day to show us what he's documented and learned and made available to us. And then, so again, I just want to welcome everybody to day two of this. I really enjoyed yesterday and really excited and looking forward to today and see where it goes. So off of that, we've got our first session up today. It's a panel keynote, which I'm really excited for. The discussion is, what the tech did we learn and how are we moving forward? I feel like that's could be the name of this whole conference. So I love this. I'm looking forward to it. So with that, I'm going to introduce Peter Brigham with UMass Lowell. He's going to lead the panel and introduce the others. So with that, Peter, I will pass it on to you.
Great. Thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to start with a lightning round of introductions. As Chris said, I'm Peter Brigham from UMass Lowell, where we have over 18,000 students on about 140 acres. 4.5 million square feet of building space, about 65 buildings, in an urban campus in the historic city of Lowell, where we have mills and canals. And I'll pass it off to Kate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Henshin Jimenez. I am from the University of Texas at Austin. Our institution has over 50,000 students on about 400 acres in the Austin area, including 27 million square feet and 500 plus buildings. And we are also a very urban campus in the downtown city center of Austin, sharing roads with the Capitol.
And Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Verga. I'm the Director of Facility Planning at Ohio State. I'm on campus today in Columbus, where we have 61,000 students that'll be coming in 2 or 3 weeks now. We have 590 buildings on campus, another 710 statewide, and 16,000 acres approximately here, and about 14,000 acres statewide again.
And Greg.
Morning, everyone. I'm Greg Call from UC San Francisco. My role is Director of Business Intelligence and Technology for UCSF Real Estate. We have on our campus graduate programs primarily, and about 6,500 learners, 123 buildings spread over 195 acres, about 8.8 million square feet of owned space, and spread across four primary campuses within the city and county of San Francisco. So Peter, you may have mills and rivers. We have cable cars and lots of people.
Yes, and a beautiful city. And back to the East Coast for Matt.
Hi, I'm Matthew Walsh, Assistant Director of Space Management Systems at Boston University. At Boston University, we have over 34,000 students on 175 acres with 372 buildings and a little over 15 million square feet in Boston.
Great. So our next lightning round topic is our toolbox, what systems we use. And I should say in the session, there's a link to a PDF. If your short-term memory is like mine, you could use a little written guide to all the things we're blitzing through. But at UMass Lowell, we use the full Esri suite for GIS and web-based maps. We use a space management system that is homegrown using a SQL Server, Autodesk, and an add-on called FMG Plus for tagging rooms. We take a lot of advantage of the Microsoft suite, including Teams, SharePoint, Power Apps, and we rely heavily on ADFS for user identity and security. We use 25 Live for both student scheduling and staff events, Tableau, eBuilder. We use Tririga for work orders, but it's actually managed by a state entity, so we're quite far removed from really being able to use that. We also do some in-house work with Python, and our university relations group has some in-house web programmers that have helped us out a lot. And again, to Kate.
Sure. Well, I manage the planning and design team at UT Austin, and so I can speak most directly to the software we use and the tools that we use. And I've included a few others, but we use quite a few of the same things that Peter just mentioned. My team leverages Autodesk and Revit and the Adobe suite quite a lot in the work that we do. Similar with the Microsoft suite. Our space management system right now is homegrown in-house. We use Meridian as a drawing repository. We use quite a few database programs. The ones I'm closest to are FileMaker and Access. We use Famous as our work order system, and also a small scale project management system. We also use a SharePoint project management system called Project Web App that lives in the cloud, which has been really, really helpful. And then Tableau and Box, and I'm sure there are many others that our institution is using.
Excellent. Carolyn?
Yes, we use many of the same tools as well. The Esri GIS, Smartsheets, Autodesk, Revit. But I would say myself and my team use our space information management systems, which is a great tool that pulls our floor plans, our 360 photos, and our space data, integrates it all, and we can pull it up thematically, and it's a great tool to help us make decisions in planning.
Excellent. Greg.
I think we're starting to see a consistent theme of applications. Of course, we're heavily into Esri GIS, Office 365, and using that platform as well. For our space management, we use Archibus as a platform. And for project management, which is the space management, project management are the two areas I deal mostly with, we use Oracle Primavera Unifier for our project management, working to integrate those. And then, of course, a variety of homegrown databases as well. We have our own document and drawing archive that we have developed. And then the 25 Live, Zoom, of course, Box, and the whole collaborative suite there.
Great. And Matt, to finish up.
Yep. So, I mean, we obviously use a lot of the same floor plan and map editing softwares with Autodesk and Esri. We use FM Workspace for our space management system. We use PMWeb for our capital projects. We use a lot of Power BI in the past year for sharing dashboards internally. We also use 25 Live for classrooms, and we have an in-house work order system.
Great. So now, the first of our topics, the title has looking forward, and that's really the theme of the day. And we wanted to start with the idea of sharing space and finding multiple uses for space, which during COVID, we all seem to come together and share everything. And I guess we're wondering whether that continues or whether the groups go back to the kind of territoriality that we used to see. It's common in colleges. And to start off, I'd like to go to Greg for this topic.
Thank you, Peter. And one of the challenges we face both as an academic as well as a health center is dealing with not only the COVID response on the academic side, but dealing with patients and the influx, especially at the beginning. So we really saw, a great collaboration across the academic and health side as health needed more space to be able to, socially distant and deal with patients coming in. We, of course, did the tents and temporary facilities as much as we could, but we also ended up sharing a lot of the academic and administrative space that was no longer being used for health, for patient screening and consultations and such things. That's as more of our academic side has started to come back. That's waned a little bit, but health still needs that, especially now as we're kind of seeing an uptick in patients and the need for more social distancing again. We're seeing a bit of that. It's also a bit of a challenge, and one of the focuses that particularly on the administrative side is moving to much more of a hybrid work environment. And our campus is really embracing that, because one of the other challenges we have is this large number. I've mentioned our number of owned buildings, but our number of leased buildings can sometimes be as many because of the geographic locations and also the services that we provide. So they're really looking for, how can we condense that into looking at how we share those hybrid spaces, how we do hoteling, particularly across departments. And I'll say it's becoming a challenge again, because ultimately departments view the space as theirs, not as the university's. Some of those are coming back, some of those same old arguments.
Mix of the two. Kate.
Well, we're planning on opening 100% in the fall, and so the progress and all of the projects to do all of that are still happening, even though there's some little unrest in Texas at the moment with cases and things. In the very beginning, though, UT has a large health system and a large health school, and so we were one of the primary vaccine distributors for the city. And so some of our buildings on our campus were used as those distribution centers. I think maybe for the most part in those first maybe 6 months of the year. After that, it went back to our hospitals on campus, and that's a little bit easier to manage. With respect to office space, though, there haven't been any large changes for how we plan to share or use space. I think our institution is taking the 21-22 year as our pilot for what teleworking and hybrid work and all of those things might look like. So we've been asked to be super flexible to see what works for us and how we can still serve our students and for us serving our clients and things like that. And so the planning side of my team, we've been asked to try to come up with more flexible and creative solutions for when we need to start having those conversations. So we're gearing up to start talking to people about that, but nothing has been shared or set forward to the university as a stance on we're changing our space model or we're changing our allocations. But I think we can all see that that's coming because if we just think about the price and the value of real estate, it would be unwise for us to let things go vacant for forever. So whether it's this year or in the next 2 or 3, I think it's coming.
Great. Yeah, I know there's a session coming up on some of those space and office issues, and it's certainly a very lively topic at UMass Lowell. Carolyn?
Yeah, I think similar stories. For classrooms in particular, we borrowed lots of spaces from our auxiliary groups that have those large kind of conference rooms and gymnasiums and those kinds of big spaces where we could social distance. Those are all going back to the auxiliaries. They make money on those spaces. But I think we're going to be okay. In terms of office space, we haven't had this large influx of people returning spaces. We are piloting, I was just in a meeting this morning, a smaller group in our larger administration and planning department, and actually a hybrid model and counting the number of hours that folks are using them and determining how much savings there will be. And so that's sort of our first toe in the water of really understanding the space implications of the hybrid office.
Great. And Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a similar boat to Kate and Caroline where, we haven't really moved too much to like a hotel or sharing. I think we're also kind of waiting to see what the year actually looks like. Which has led us to focus more for our group on the technologies on how to actually measure these new utilization rates. And just, we're looking at sensors, we're looking at Wi-Fi. So when the time does come, we can at least provide the best data possible to show what would be the best way to share and actually how many people are on campus.
Right. Yeah. So those metrics, both you and Carolyn mentioned, are important. We're returning 100%. The student experience is right at the forefront, and everyone's trying to make it as good as it can be, like it was before. We do have some flexibility to work remotely, but it is really not impacting, sort of like Kate was saying, it's not impacting our space standards or how we arrange offices. But we are in the middle of a post-COVID master plan where we're trying to introduce that topic. And I guess Carolyn mentioned, that idea of a pilot. Let's at least try this on a small scale because I think 30% of our space is office. So if you can get just a little incremental improvement, it could make a big difference, especially to meet other needs on the campus. So I want to move on to a little more techie. I should say, I'm trained as an architect. I work as a planner, and I manage our facilities information systems group. So I kind of wear each hat, and we have a good mix on the panel, which I think is part of what makes the discussion lively. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was that idea of one version of the truth. I think a lesson coming out of COVID was that emailing around a spreadsheet for very important decisions to respond to a very fast situation is not the best way to handle things, trying to figure out which version who has and trying to update multiple versions. So I'll turn to Kate, and maybe we could talk a little bit about what we learned and what we're doing going forward with that idea of one version of the truth.
Sure. I think, especially at the very beginning when everybody first got home, there were a lot of growing pains for the things that we had to respond to very quickly. And then also some of the things that we were used to doing together in the same room. And so we, as an organization and really as a university, really leveraged our technology, and everybody leaned into Teams, Box, Dropbox, using the file sharing function in Teams. We learned really quickly, when we're trying to open up the classrooms and things like that, that the emailing just was wasting time because you had to track the versioning and things along those lines. We also use Smart Sheets for a lot of polling for our building managers to try to gather that data. And I do think that we did find some gaps in our data set as we were trying to figure out how we wanted to open our classrooms at a reduced capacity and what was in those rooms versus not. And we have a pretty large campus, even though it's dense. And it ended up that we had to walk it and make sure that all of the rooms had those chair counts and that they could be reduced to, I believe we did 60%, and then some spacing, the 6 feet and things along those lines. And so I think of hindsight's always 20/20, but we did learn quite a lot about the things that we wish we had had before we had to, walk all the buildings.
Yeah, there's a lot of buildings to walk. Carolyn?
Yeah, the spreadsheet that went around at first was making me slightly crazy. As we have, unfortunately, 2 building number systems, our scheduling is a little bit different than ours. And I would send it out with the rooms identified, and I would get it back with a different building number, and I'd have to look it up. But anyway, when we did get going with Teams and file sharing, things did improve tremendously, and we were able to get a lot of good work done. Especially again with our 360 photos as well, to be able to look into classrooms in particularly. And when unfortunately we don't have the entire university photos for all of them, when we ran into a couple of rooms where we didn't have them, we had to also go walk and make sure they were set up and try not to have any surprises.
Great. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we had similar stories, and at first we start off emailing sheets around, and then the sheets got too big, and then how do you refresh them? So then we had the great idea of SharePoint, which we ran into the same issues. You can only have so many people in the system at a time, and so with each iteration, we found ourselves leveraging our space system more, FMS. And what's great about that is you can just keep adding tables and tabs, and each tab, only certain users could edit it if you want. And so instead of spending the time to teach our maintenance guys how to use, Excel online, at the time to teach them how to use our space system. And now it's just one shop, everything's there, our data. And so, we went from why should we put into our system to just why not now? You know exactly where to look. So it was very interesting to see where it went. We went from 100 users to 400 over the past year. So it was really great for our small little department to get our name out there.
And that's continuing even as you emerge.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're pushing it even more now with, we're reaching out to the departments. They manage their own people in the system, their space their space types, there's an approval system. So it really makes it a lot easier for our surveys. We have a lot less time in the field now too.
Excellent. And Greg?
In my role, I've been a little bit less involved in the academic and classroom side of it. I mean, we have had a lot of challenges, particularly around the same ideas of sharing large amounts of information. One of the challenges we had too is that our central IT was working on deploying Office 365, but hadn't quite gotten there. It was more on the roadmap for later in 2021, probably about this time. But they quickly accelerated that and launched it for our entire campus within a couple of months of going into shelter in place last year. So one, it was a learning curve for all of our staff and just how to use the tools, and then kind of migrating that from Box and email. I would say that we still end up with a lot in email. So we have a lot of room for improvement in the kind of the collaboration spaces and getting people into the actual systems and using them there.
Yeah, I'd agree. We've got a ways to go. At the same time, COVID did help push a lot of people. We had one effort on opening labs, and a great lab manager who just had a unique way of creating a spreadsheet. And as a colleague of mine said, it was a little like a view into his mind, but it was not useful data. So we did have a lot of success with SharePoint, using SharePoint lists and this Microsoft Power Apps. So we were able to create a data collection app that had only valid room numbers, to Carolyn's point, because we use a 3-letter or some number of letter identifiers. A long time ago, there were 2 letters, and we still have faculty who have been here so long that they will say BA instead of BAL. And we have enough buildings that you can't tell. At any rate, we'd have a Power App that you could only pick a valid room number. You know, you had a set number of, like, this is the thing I'm trying to do, and this is the department I'm in. That also pulled from ADFS, so you could get valid emails to notify people. That was very successful. And then on the Esri side, we created similar data collection apps where we could have people identify. We had these big sanitizer refill drums, and we needed to know where those were. We needed to know which rooms had cleaning kits, because we had some self-cleaning, or people would do-it-yourself cleaning kits. So we have what we call the campus viewer with all of our floor plans and rooms. And we were able to collect right on that. We have about 70 layers now, so that's grown a lot and pushed along by COVID. I know we had talked previously, I just want to mention, we experimented or tried to with using Wi-Fi hotspots, and I know Matt had some experience with that. We ran into some concerns about whether that was useful and whether there were any privacy issues. But I'm still very interested on the planning side of being able to use that Wi-Fi data, because everybody's on their phone just to see patterns through campus. And Matt, I don't know if you want to share any of that we talked about previously, or.
Sure. I mean, we start off originally when COVID hit, we sent out like a Google Forms to all the deans, and it was to tell us, you know, how much are you actually using your space, how many people are coming on campus, and it was great, but it took a while to calculate, and you were left to their judgment. And so this summer, I was part of a team that built a density tracking map using Wi-Fi, and we had the same questions. You know, can we use it? Can we use the data? And you know, our general counsel came back with sure. And you know, we set up servers that would calculate all the current Wi-Fi connections on campus, and it would anonymize all that. So, you know, it would clean up all the totals, and it would spit it out by floor by building, and then that would come into a Power BI dashboard that connect to an Esri map, and then you could see all the density on campus. So it was a pretty fun tool. It was my first time actually working with live data, which, you know, you can't manipulate, you can't do anything. You just have to be able to hit refresh. We also had to use some Power Apps to make the refresh work every time. And so it's a good baseline. We've been having it run for 11 months now. So definitely be a really good comparison for the fall coming up to actually see, is staff actually coming back like they're supposed to be? You know, this is our first full week on campus where we're supposed to be, you know, 2 or 3 days. So it's interesting to see our people actually coming back. But, you know, some of the downsides are guests are a little bit hard to track. If you sign in as a guest, it doesn't really take you off right away. But we also did have it so we don't duplicate users. So if I logged in twice on 2 different devices, you know, it only counts me once.
Excellent. So another topic, sort of related, but I know Carolyn mentioned 360 photos. We found our photos of campus to be incredibly helpful, and just wanted to talk about how you use and organize photographs of campus spaces. So Kate?
We are currently trying to capture all of our campus in 3D photos. So similar to what Carolyn said earlier, we didn't have a whole or a complete set of images for all of the spaces that we needed to see. But having them, we were able to, I think, build some strategy as to where we needed to go and what we needed to do. And also maybe train, and show individuals. We built some pretty large teams that were sent out to help make ready for last fall. And those images were really helpful to say, you go in here, these are the things that we're looking for, things like that. Has not everyone that was tasked on that team had the same experience. And so, but yeah, we really enjoy the 360 photo. We use it in all different kinds of our work. And I'm hoping that that's something that we continue to keep in our repository. We have a larger effort happening right now where we're trying to take all of the drawings into the like a true BIM space where they're connected to all of our data, all the useful data, images, and things along those lines. And so as we talk about that, those are some of those things that we wished that we would have had. We could have moved so much faster had that been done. It also it's going to take us like 10 years to get there, so it's kind of, we have so much space, but we could really see, and it's really helped communicate the value of why these technologies are so helpful. Is we could have sent fewer people, we could have moved faster, we could have known exactly what we needed to do. So, yeah.
And what kind of camera do you use, or cameras?
One of our teams uses the Matterport scanner, and so I think that's the most commonly used one. We've had a couple other laser scanners and things that we've used previously, but for the most part, Matterport's the most commonly used in our campus.
Great. And Carolyn?
I actually do not know what type of camera is used to take those photos. Certainly someone on my team will know that answer. But they were, what I thought was also really interesting is we had a good set of photos for the academic spaces and the classrooms. The auxiliary rooms were a little less. We've just focused on academics first. But what the classroom pool committee did was then go back and take a picture after it was set up for COVID with the spacing, so that the faculty members could at least get a look at what they could expect when they did come into the classroom. So it was really interesting. They weren't 360, but it was still an opportunity for everyone to understand what they were walking into on the first day of class.
Great. And Matt?
So we leverage our 25 Live system for a lot of our classroom photos when we started, which was really great for our registrar photos. But we found a lot of our proprietary classrooms did not want their photos in the system because then somebody might schedule it. And so we had a lot of some members on our team who didn't know CAD, and they would go out and take pictures for us. So therefore, the ones that could update the classrooms, we could pretty much stay busy and circle hell. And so, now we're actually putting in those pictures into 25 Live for those proprietary rooms, kind of rather if they like it or not. Just that way we have this, the information going forward.
Yeah, territoriality in another way. Did you mention what camera you use? I may have missed it. Is it flat photos?
Yeah, it's flat photos. We don't do 3D photos. So we'll have our game right now.
Great. And Greg?
And this is, again, an area that I haven't been involved heavily with. We do leverage, as Matt said, our 25 Live for academic spaces. I think it's from our space management systems kind of highlighted an area where we really actually do need to do more, collaborate with our facilities partners. The way we're set up, facilities is actually in a different unit, so we don't have a lot of communication across a lot of direct communication always across the planning and design and construction side and with facilities. So it's an area that in the coming years, we have on our roadmap to continue to work on. This will probably accelerate some of it.
Excellent. We've got some questions in, but just to continue on photos, we use a Ricoh Theta. It's a small, I think it's up to like $350 or $400 now. Very inexpensive. Takes a 360 in less than a second. And I mentioned our web services team. They helped us develop an app that talks to that camera, but lets us tag the room number. Because when we started, we had interns who had to, write the room number on a sticky and then go back to all the photos to know where they were taken. But we have over 11,000 of those photos now. So we've experimented a little with Matterport. I thought the sessions yesterday were great on the digital twins and laser scanning and Matterport, so I won't rehash all that. But we found that that's very effective. And like Carolyn, we actually went and took photos of what a socially distanced classroom looked like, so the faculty understood, but also just to document, because we kept back to the one version of the truth. Is ball 114 de-densified? And I said, well, if you go to the campus viewer and look at the photo, we have the de-densified photo, and that's what it looked like. It is always a challenge because chairs can move pretty easily, so you have to take a lot of photos. On the topic of de-densification, one of the questions that came in was, how did you handle seating diagrams in classrooms? Are you saving COVID-spaced configurations you have made in 2020? Any other comments on seating configurations in classrooms? I'll start and give you all some time to think about that one. I know we've talked about it a little. We ended up doing a high-level assessment. We did a couple of tests on, okay, how many square feet do we need? And how does that play out around our portfolio? But we did end up drawing all 120 classrooms and 100 and something class labs with 6-foot circles. We created some blocks to show people and to answer the question about, are you including the professor? So we had a block with a standing person at the front and seated people. So we did it at 6 feet. We actually ended up doing it at 3 feet when the restrictions relaxed. We certainly are we save all of our drawings. So hopefully we'll never have to go back to that. I know nobody wants to. And the other thing that helped there was just, very simple, but just creating a sort of map, a PDF book of all of the rooms and sharing that. So we have distinct campuses, north, south, east. And it was just an easy way to say, go look at those. We didn't pull them into the campus viewer. We did take photos. Our capacity was quite severely reduced with 6-foot spacing. But I'll, Kate, you want to comment on de-densifying?
Sure. Yes, my team helped to develop essentially a methodology for how we would address the rooms. And so we built almost like a checklist of the things that we would need to take a look at. Unfortunately, like probably most of you all, we didn't have furniture on all of our drawings. And even the drawings that did have furniture might have been in the process of purchasing the furniture. And so they might not have been the layout that was actually installed. And so we ended up having to draw all of them, which was really fun. And then when we were doing that, we were then able to show that the methodology is not, it wasn't broad enough for everything. We had to find some flexibility. 6-foot distancing in assembly or stadium style auditorium seating was really complicated because you lose so many seats in that radius. It wasn't just every so many chairs left to right. And so that when we did the quick analysis of reducing by percentages, that didn't add up necessarily in the same way. So we did learn, and we knew that the configuration of the room played a really large part in us being able to distance in those spaces and maintain a capacity that they could schedule for. And so our teams would put all of the seats in the back of the space if possible and zip tie them together so that they couldn't be used or they couldn't add additional seating to the space. Now that we're putting that all back, chairs have legs. And so it's interesting to see how even when they were zip tied, they're still moving around. And so bringing it all back has been an interesting and similar kind of labor of trying to make sure that all of the seats are in the right spaces, and not all of the capacities are exactly the same as they were, because the seating is different now. So
Definitely. Carolyn?
Yeah, very similar story. We started out using percentages to try and get to the right capacities and the right social distancing. And we ended up using the hexagon as opposed to a circle, laying out the corners end to end. And we were able to move all of the furniture out of the room. So they were, only seats available were the number that fit in there, but they did get moved around. Of course, they would get moved around. But we have saved those floor plans. We did not, as you said, we didn't update our Sims with all of those new floor plans, but we did create all new CAD plans for all of those new rooms. We got our students involved in that because we had 350 rooms to accomplish. So it was, it's a great feeling to know what you can do when you need to. And it's fun moving all that furniture back. And we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, right?
Definitely.
But we are back to quote unquote normal floor plans this fall.
Excellent. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we were a pretty similar story. We had 600 classrooms to de-densify. Some of the tricks we use in at least sharing that data, we use our space system and imported all those layouts into it. So therefore groups could just see, on the floor plan, the new layouts. And then in front of each classroom door, we had a printed out layout of what that room should look like to help with our cleaning staff. And then they even placed stickers on the floor for where desks should be. So therefore they could be easily pushed. But yeah, I mean, I think we did about 1,700 plans total for those 600 rooms. So, there was a lot of iterations with some of these spaces. We did it all classrooms, labs, everything, got touched. But the space system was very helpful in sharing that data easily with a lot of our other groups. And we also have all that data in the system now for attributes, so we actually hit it now for the fall. But if we did have to go back to 6 feet, we can turn on all those fields again so you can see all your capacities very easily.
That's smart. Greg, I know you're not as involved on the academic side, but any comments on social distancing or sort of spreading out on campus?
Yeah, well, and we've certainly gone through the same exercises. What we haven't done is taken a lot of that information back into our space systems. We haven't our current space system. We haven't really pulled in a lot of, as particularly in the academic rooms, their new designs and new floor plans. Fortunately, we've left that to the side. One of the challenges we face too is that we don't have a great pool of intern and student recruits because of our focus on graduate programs. So we don't have any undergraduate students that are looking for internships. It's hard to leverage that labor resource to be able to do a lot of the efforts. It was kind of a constraint we had as well. A lot of it was handled by our facilities team and managing those spaces.
Yeah, it was the same with us, just because we didn't have a lot of students on campus. We did have most of the furniture drawn, but not all of it. So there was some of that. A little aside, we do an instructional space survey. That's one data collection effort we started years ago, where students are given an app, and now we take photos. But other questions not related to COVID, like what type of technology is there one screen or two? Is it a flat screen or a drop down? Are there window blinds? How many outlets? What type of furniture? Because as you all mentioned, laying out tablet arms versus tables with movable chairs, tables with not movable chairs, and then fixed seating were very different in terms of social distancing. I think everyone also touched on the Delta variant. So now I know I'm on pins and needles hoping that we don't go back into contingency planning mode. So I'll start again and just say we are planning 100% in person. We have mandated that our students are vaccinated. We have a little portal where they upload proof of vaccination. There are discussions about whether that would apply to faculty and staff. We've done a survey, and based on the survey, it's a very, very high percentage of faculty and staff that are vaccinated. And we're fortunate that our numbers are still pretty low, except for a couple of hotspots that have made the national news. So right now it's full steam ahead, really trying to get a full student on campus and residential experience. Kate, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. Texas has quite a few rising cases at the moment. The city of Austin just went backwards in our staging with the number of cases being reported. However, the university and the public school systems are all pushing forward with their original plans. And so there's no formal contingency plan or anything like that in place. With respect to vaccinations, they're highly encouraged, but not required for either faculty, staff, or students. They are offered on campus on multiple sites, and so I think there's a strong push for that, but there is currently no requirement for that.
Carolyn?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, just this week, we've gone back to masks on campus indoors. Previously, it was only if you were not vaccinated that you needed to wear a mask. So we're crossing our fingers that can, prevent the virus, prevent Ohio State from being a hotspot, so we can go back to class as normal. That is the plan right now. Vaccinations are not required yet, but they did go as far as requiring everyone to report whether they've been vaccinated or not. And then that information isn't given to anyone else or anything like that. But I think they're utilizing it to gauge, what the percentage of vaccinated folks are here on campus.
Excellent. Matt?
We've been kind of slow to get out of our COVID protocol, so we actually never drop indoor masks. We've been having them all summer. We still have our weekly COVID testing. Everybody on campus, staff, faculty, and students come the fall has to be vaccinated if they wish to be on campus. They just really don't want to go back to distance learning again. The university has made it very clear. So we're just hoping we don't have to see those 6-foot circles again.
Yes, never again, hopefully. Greg?
Well, we have mandate across the UC system, so all 11 of our campuses, that all faculty, students, and staff must be vaccinated if they're returning to campus. So they've been pretty proactive in that aspect. And then UCSF is taking additional measures to require that everyone be vaccinated, and also, through daily attestations if we're going into the office. And we're actually getting to the point now where when you badge in, if you haven't attested, kind of the end goal is you're not allowed in the building if you haven't attested and have the vaccination record. So we've been being pretty aggressive in that aspect. And we do again have indoor masking requirements that's been reenacted across our 7-county Bay Area. So we're back to that as well.
Great. I know we have just a couple minutes left. There was one more questions on photos about where to host them that preserves the 360 aspect. I can speak to that. Our web services team created a database and a web-based viewer. I don't know exactly the technology, but they use that. And we also found that in SharePoint, depending on how you use the link, you can actually enter into a 360 mode. Same with Google Docs will recognize 360s. If you haven't seen them, they do look like a very strange JPEG where everything that should be straight is curved. And then when you look at it, it comes straight again. So I think I'll wrap up and just say I really appreciate my fellow panelists and everyone for joining us. Hope you found it useful. Again, that some of the early statistics and platforms are on the session as a PDF. And I know, I bet everybody is. I'm perfectly willing to answer questions. Please reach out if anything sparked your interest and you want to follow up. And again, thanks. It was a great fun for me. And I will pass it back to Chris.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, and everyone else for that panel. That was exciting. Definitely a lot to deal with about the space management and in a time of a pandemic. And knock on wood, hopefully we can get through that soon. Again, as you said, no more 6-foot bubbles. I'm often talking about the point of what we're doing is making data centralized, shareable, and accessible. And it sounds like you all really had to engage that, especially at the beginning of this. A lot of disparate data sources and out of date and lack of information and a lot of data collection. So oftentimes that's the first challenge. So kudos to just getting through that before you can even start thinking about the analyzing and making decisions off of it. Enjoyed kind of hearing about some of the aspects you were looking at, just even, mapping out sanitizer drums and your cleaning kits and where those are located. And, and then at BU, the density, the Wi-Fi density tracking for kind of understanding the room usages almost in real time pretty much. And yeah, there's a lot of discussion going on about the 360 pictures. That's good to hear. I mean, I've always talked to people about there's a lot of value in that. And it's the epitome of capture it once, use it multiple times. I mean, that's essentially what we're trying to do here. So good job on all that. All right, so next I'm going to bring up the illustrator, Matt. Can come back on board and show us what he's put together off of that session.
Hey, thank you, Chris. A lot of information as you've kind of gone through, but one thing that I heard is that this is still in flux. You guys are still on the bleeding edge of change or what's happening. So your flexibility and preparation makes a big difference. Some folks that have gone through the pandemic, they've already felt the toughest part is past that. But I hope that's the case for you. But stay flexible and be ready. So I put an accordion up there because I think this thing's going to keep going back and forth. Anyway, that's my take. Thanks, Chris. Back to you.
All right, Matt. Appreciate that. I don't know how you do that. I can barely keep track of while people are talking, nonetheless drawing things at the same time. So kudos on that. All right. So coming up next, we have our first sponsor presentation of the day, Cartograph, high performance campuses, managing your business and infrastructure smarter. So I think it ties right into this space management discussion. You can flip over to that next session. We'll be starting in a couple minutes. And then after that is the member meeting. So join that and enjoy the rest of the sessions.